My name's Leo and I'm a boat builder and a sailor. I'm on a mission to rebuild and restore the 109-year-old classic sailing yacht Tally-Ho. Now that project is happening on the west coast of the United States. I've now just arrived back in Bristol, England, which is the town that I'm originally from, and I'm going to be spending a little bit of time here catching up with friends and family before I go away to do a little bit of sailing. Tonight though, I'm giving a presentation at the Royal Ocean Racing Club in London, and that's a club that was actually originally founded with the organisation of the first Fastnet race in 1925. And Tally-Ho won that race in 1927, so it's quite a significant place for the boat. There's even a very old wooden bar stool in the club with Tally-Ho's name carved into it.
Welcome to the club. I'm Ellie Wardner, Chief Executive of the Royal Ocean Racing Club, and we're delighted to have you here. I'm also delighted to introduce Leo Goulden. There's one part of your video where it actually writes down, you said, shall I do something very, very silly and rescue this boat? And this 1910 cutter, you might call it, won the Fastnet race. For those non-members, basically the Fastnet race defined this club. So the first race in 1925, the first Fastnet race, was actually the start of the Ocean Racing Club. And then in 1927, this boat, Tally-Ho, won the race. I think only 2 boats finished at that time. It was such a tough race. And it was the Fastnet that started the Ocean Racing Club, which became the Royal Ocean Racing Club. So, Leo, we're delighted to have you here. The resourcefulness, the sort of problem solving, the way you tackle these jobs without a murmur or a complaint, and with a parrot on your shoulder. Tell us more about the parrot. And welcome, Leo Goulden.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the boat first and her history, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and sort of what led me to this project, and then I'll talk a bit about the project, how it's gone so far, and what the future might hold. And then we'll do some questions and hopefully some answers. We'll see. So, Tally-Ho, and she is. Have to start really, of course, with Albert Strange, who designed Tally-Ho in 1909, and here he is sailing. He was most famous for pioneering the canoe yawl, which is a small boat which was kind of became, at the time, the everyman's boat. It was unusual in that you could go long distance cruising in it really, but it was small enough for the sort of average guy to build and maintain on its own. So there he is, and there's all of his paintings, some beautiful watercolours. And this is one of his canoe yawls. Someone from the ASA can probably tell us which one.
It's my boat, actually. That's Emerald.
It's your boat?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Is that you on it?
No.
It's like a bit of varnish work. No, she looks beautiful, very well kept. What about this one? Anyone own this boat? So this is another one of Strange's boats. I just put this in because slightly unusual for Strange. She's got a transom stern, which wasn't his go-to, but something that this boat shares with Tally-Ho. So Tally-Ho was really designed and inspired as a deep sea boat, as a boat that could go offshore and cruise and fish safely, because she was commissioned by a man who owned a fishing fleet, and he wanted to be able to cruise and fish with his family. So she was kind of modelled after pilot cutter lines. This is just a picture of some of the early pilot cutters. Pictures here that show the lines more clearly, and I could be wrong, but I think this is on the Isles of Scilly. Pilot cutters, as you guys probably know, are the boats that would take the pilots out to the big cargo ships which were coming into port. So the pilots were the guys that knew the home waters really well. And in the Bristol Channel particularly, it became a very competitive trade, this race to get the pilots out to the boats, because they had a system whereby the first pilot to get to the cargo ship would be the one that actually got the work, whereas in a lot of other ports they would have a rota. And later on in Bristol they implemented that rota as well, but before then all the local designers and builders really developed boats that were fast as well as seaworthy, so that their owners would get those pilots out there first and get the job and get the money. So that's why Bristol Channel pilots in particular are so famous for their speed as well as their seakeeping ability. And I think it was from those sorts of boats that Strange kind of was inspired for the lines of Tally-Ho. So we've got a few of Strange's drawings. These drawings were very kindly provided to me from the ASA, and they actually came from Mystic Seaport Museum on the east coast of the States, and they have a huge archive of classic boat drawings and all sorts of other stuff there. I really like this particular drawing because it's clearly one of Strange's first sketches for Tally-Ho. You've got the sort of some lines plans here, body plan up there, but you've also got the accommodation, and you can see where he's rubbed things out, and she's actually got a plumb stem in this drawing, which she wasn't built with. And we've got a few more pictures here. This is the lines drawing, of course. So Tally-Ho was 47 foot 6 inches on deck. That's about 44 foot on her waterline, and she's probably with all spars, including her beam, she's about 65 foot overall. Beam of 12 foot 10 inches and a draft of 7 foot. Now these lines, when I got them, I didn't realise how important they would be to me. Of course, when I sort of discovered the extent of the damage and the change of the shape of the hull, the lines became really, really important because I used them to reel off the boat and correct the shape. Now let's check if how's the audio? Is the level alright? Should I just shout? Yeah, just Is that better?
Yeah.
I think I'll just do that. If I get hoarse, you're all going to have to buy me beers. This is the construction drawing. Again, really, really useful for the rebuild. And just really nice to see the construction of the boat. You can see the stern assembly, which of course was replaced recently, bow assembly, and you get a lot of the scannings of these drawings, which just means basically the sizes of the timbers, so the dimensions. It's also, there's some information on what different timbers should be used. So you can see on here, Strange's written bottom strakes of American elm and the top strakes of teak. I don't believe that was followed. I believe all the planks are teak. But what was followed, which is quite interesting, is the deck planking. He's written teak here for the outside deck planks, and for the inside, there's nothing written here, but just here it says deck 1.5 inch yellow pine or kauri. And I'm pretty sure that was followed, and those deck planks are kauri pine. And I've never seen that in other boats where you have two different types of timber on the deck. So if anyone has come across that before or knows why it was done, I'd be very interested because I haven't figured it out. This is an accommodation plan. Again, it's very interesting. I love some of the details that Strange drew in here. Where is it? I think up here you've got a meat safe on deck, integral to the build, of course. And I think there's a boot locker down here.
Are you following that fit out?
I don't know about the meat safe. No, I would like to. I'm hoping to. It's a bit of a hard decision because for a cruising boat that's going to be used a lot, there's certain modernisations that would be nice to make. If I was building a new boat, of course, it would probably be a bit more open plan. But I think for the sake of authenticity, I'm going to follow this as closely as it's practical. Also, original sail plan, of course, it was increased for the Fastnet race when she was changed hands in 1927. A bigger sail plan was put on because the new owner wanted to race the boat. This is the yard where she was built, Stowe & Sons in Shoreham, Sussex. There's no pictures of Tally-Ho being built, unfortunately. These are probably a little bit later, but that's a particularly nice picture of the shed where she was probably built, I imagine. These guys hanging out in their horse and carts. This is the first, I believe, the first picture of Tally Ho that we've got sailing along quite elegantly there, fairly close reach on Port Tap. And there's a couple of interesting things. You can see her davits, where she's got a motor dinghy on her davits that she quickly dropped over the side. We've actually got the lines for that dinghy, so it might be possible one day for us to build that dinghy and put it on deck. And this is really the photo that sold me the boat, I think. Seeing her under that massive rig, coming, bearing down on the cameraman. It's just such a magnificent photo. This is with her larger rig that was installed in 1927. This is actually taken during the Fastnet race, and it's got her topmast there, and it's gigantic topsail and the spinnaker out. And you can actually see a pair of shins there. The guy standing on the spinnaker pole behind the staysail. It's quite good. That's the original. So that was during the Fastnet race, and this guy called Mark Spinks, who was the captain of the boat during that race, and I actually met with his grandfather. No, other way around. He was excited to know that the boat was being rebuilt because he actually went on board Tally Ho when he was a little kid. So he's got fond memories of that, and hopefully I'll be able to get him on board again one day. And a few more photos of the boat in sort of years after that. We sort of don't know about a brief period of her history, but then she was owned by a family who cruised her, and they've given us some really interesting photographs of the sort of life on board. They did an Atlantic cruise, and then they lived, I think, on the boat somewhere in Solent. So this is some really cool photos of the boat in snow, and there's a small girl you can see standing in that hatch there, which is a girl called Fran Flutter, who you guys may have heard of. She was quite an accomplished sailor in the end, and she died last year. But she was very elderly, and I met her a couple of years ago when I was just taking on this project. There's the boat dried out from her berth. Anyone who's ever lived on a mud berth can probably sympathise. Completely normal. And this one is some of the only photos we have of the interior of the boat. So, of course, it's not a lot to go on, but it'll probably be helpful to use these photos to replicate some of the trim and some of the details. I'm not sure about the baby. So this shows Tally Ho on the reef in the Pacific near Rarotonga, on a small island where she was. She'd gone to pick up copra, which is a dried coconut husk, I think. And so essentially she was owned by a New Zealander. He bought her in the UK, and he was on his way back to New Zealand. So he sailed through the Atlantic and through the Panama Canal, and he was sort of earning money as he went. He got this job picking up this cargo from this island, and he essentially had to stand off the island till daybreak one day, and got swept onto the reef as they were hove to in the middle of the night. To see her bow, that's how close she was to being completely lost. Yeah. So I heard about all this, and I started making the videos as this project started, and then sometime into it I got an email from the guy whose father or his grandfather was the guy that was on the fishing boat that pulled Tally Ho off the reef, and it was through him that I got these photos. And it's just incredible that there have been so many instances where people have got in touch with me through things like that they've got some connection with the boat or some connection with something that's going on here, and they've been able to provide more information or inspiration, or they've offered me something that is connected to the boat. So it was just amazing to, after hearing all that, to see these photos, and see how close the boat was to destruction. So this the family that happened to be passing in their sort of, there's a converted fishing trawler that this New Zealand family were travelling around the world on. They helped basically filled the boat with oil drums, empty oil drums, and they ripped all the interior out, filled it with empty oil drums, and they were able to float it off the reef that way. But her entire port side was stove in, and then she lost the rig, lost the bowsprit, so she's very nearly done for. Later on, she became a fishing boat. There she is. I'm considering that we can get a boat on that. We'll see. See how it goes. But yeah, she became a commercial fishing boat. She was bought by a guy who took up to the west coast of the States, to Oregon. Long story short, she was fishing salmon and tuna from a port in Oregon, also going out to some of the Pacific Islands. And that was her life, essentially. She was renamed Escape and used and probably abused until, for whatever reason, she was laid up in a boatyard in Oregon. She was laid up there for years, suffered a lot of freshwater damage. You know, she was just outside. You can see in these photos she's kind of just deteriorating really. And at this stage she was bought by a local, a guy called Manuel. There he is. He was a local artist in this town in Oregon. And you know, he could see that it was a special boat, and he saw the beautiful lines, and he wanted to restore her. And he did a lot of important work, and really the best thing he did was keeping the boat alive. You know, he enabled the boat to be passed on, and unfortunately Manuel died. And of course, a lot of the work that he did is being undone as I do a more thorough rebuild, really. But if it wasn't for him, the boat probably would have been broken up there in Oregon. So there it is. She looks almost ready to go, but unfortunately not. As I found out. So that was the condition I found Tally her in, with this cover over her. About 2 years ago now. But before we get into that, I'm going to go a little bit into my past and how I ended up taking on this boat, because probably a lot of the other stuff about the project and about Tally Ho you guys know from the videos, so this stuff you may not know.